What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to day two of the winter meetings, Mets Hot Stove edition. How's everybody doing tonight on this Monday, December 8th, as we get a little bit more deeper and longer into the winter meetings? And of course, nothing happened because all the hoopla that was supposed to happen, as everybody thinks. I mean, again, it was I think yesterday was a weird day overall because there was a lot of flight delays and with the storm that was in Florida that was apparently pretty bad. And, some GMs, some president of baseball ops didn't even get into town until very, very late. So today's like kind of day one. You just hope that your team and our team would actually, start moving around here. All the rumors that we've heard over the last couple of weeks, we want to see some movement with our team. So before we get started with some news, say what up to Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's like so far it's the Mets report stove instead of the hot stove because we've just been seeing a lot of reports out there about free agents and possible fits. And we do have the pleasure and the luxury of finally getting to hear from David Stearns, who is giving some insight on some names and players and position groups. He's talked about Carson Bench, which we'll get into. He's given an update, a really good update about Christian Scott, saying that once he gets to spring training, he's going to be a full participant. So that's really good news to have Christian Scott back for 2026. But there's just a lot more speculation, and we also, I think, maybe even should start talking about the pitching report that Will Salmon dropped first thing today, and talking about how the Mets are going to be yet again reluctant to give a starting pitcher a long-term deal this offseason in free agency. And I kind of we kind of knew that all along, right, Rob? And not even given the Pobo and who he is and David Stearns and the philosophy, because we know that's how he operates, that's how he rolls. But also just this market, Framber Valdez is who he is. He could definitely headline a rotation. He has done so for the Astros in the past, but he's 32 years old. I think that if any team gives him a 6-year deal, it's going to be absolutely insane and crazy. And I don't even know if I'd want the Mets to go for anything longer than 4 for Valdez, personally speaking. But there's really not that many other names outside of Tatsuya and Mai on this free agent market that you look at and you're like, I am really willing to splurge on a long-term 5+ year deal for this guy. There's really not that many. Like Ranger Suarez is probably in line for a long-term deal. Is anybody comfortable giving him 4, 5, 6 years? Probably not, right? And so that's where I know a lot of Mets fans, I think, and I've seen a lot of Mets fans frustrated at that. I don't know if that philosophy is going to apply to Tatsuya Imai. I would hope that it doesn't apply if they're actually serious about him. But let's be honest, we knew coming into this offseason that this free agency class, in terms of starting pitching, was going to be weak as it is. And so that's where we should probably start off with what Will Salmon said earlier this morning. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when it comes to the free agent market isn't great. We knew that. We always assumed that a trade would be more likely or possible, and the issue is, after trading Brandon Nimmo, you have an outfield spot available. I know Stearns talked about Carson Bench playing left field, and that's understandable. But if you do trade for a starting pitcher, you still got to sign a starting pitcher. I'm not saying it has to be Valdez or a guy like at the top of the market right now, but it could be a Ranger Suarez, somebody like that you could fill in, or am I with somebody you trade for? Say it's a Peralta, it's a Sandy Alcantara, it's a Tariq Skubal. That is why, and with the reports coming out that the Mets are reluctant to give a long-term deal to a starting pitcher. And it wasn't really reported that it's reported that they won't. It's kind of that philosophy that we know David Stearns has, not giving long-term deals to pitchers over 30 years old. But we've been linked to Valdez since like day one of the offseason. There's a lot of smoke there. And is Baltimore going to be that team that is favored over us right now? It seems like that would be the case, but it's getting frustrating now, right? And by the way, guys, we did sign Carl Edwards Jr. to a minor league deal invite to spring training. I know everybody's probably buying his jersey right now, and that excited everybody. And it did piss Met fans off, no doubt about it. But overall, we talked about this, Chris, and a lot of people agree. Philosophy has to change after what happened last year. It has to. I'm not saying 100% completely, but it's got to change a little bit. It was a complete disaster. And then there was another report within. It's not the same report, but another report saying that the Mets like to pay undervalued type players or pitchers, and they believe they can fix them, and that's okay for your fourth starter or your fifth starter, not a guy that you project to be your ace because he was good 3 years ago. And we talked about this yesterday, Chris. It's just, again, you can't believe everything you see. I know it was a Jeff Poston report about, with that when it comes to contract length with pitchers and all that. Well, he needs to do something. Like, you can't, go to the B part of free agency or the trade market and get two of those guys just because they're cheaper, either prospect-wise or money-wise or years-wise, and say that, oh, he's our ace because he's quote-unquote the best pitcher that is on this team. It's not going to work like that. Nolan McLean should not be the number 2 starter. Like, if you get Tariq Skubal, maybe you can survive it. And, because the number 3 starter can be somebody, number 4 is going to be somebody internally, and number 5 is going to be somebody internally, fine. But when we heard reports that the Mets are looking at 2 top starting pitchers, and again, there's a lot of pathways to go. There's a lot of different ways we can go here, free agency and trade market, that they could do. And it doesn't have to be a Tariq Skubal and Framber Valdez. If they want to do Freddie Peralta and somebody else, maybe in the free agent market, maybe that's a way to go as well. It is a way to go, but it's the cheaper route. And again, everybody's like, oh, let's get Freddie Peralta. Yay, let's get Freddie Peralta. But Tariq Skubal goes somewhere else. Like, I mean, that's called being second fiddle. You basically settled for less. Freddie Peralta's not a bad pitcher, but he's also a rental. We had this conversation last night when it comes to Tariq Skubal being a rental. Who would you rather have, Freddie Peralta or Tariq Skubal? Like, it should be a no-brainer. It should be. They're both rentals. So, you're going to try to sign Freddie Peralta as well, most likely, right? And yeah, it might not be the massive contract of Tariq Skubal, but it's still going to cost you prospect-wise. So I'd rather get the better pitcher. Stop going for the B-level free agents. And Freddie Peralta that's kind of wrong to say he's a B-level, but when you get to the top of the market with Tariq Skubal, it's like, it's a no-brainer. So it's just a matter of, are these reports true that the Mets are reluctant to give long-term deals, even though they've been attached to Framber Valdez, where everybody kind of knew over the last couple of weeks he's probably going to get close to a 5-6 year deal. Everybody believes he's going to get that. So if you're the Mets, why are you even involved if you're not going to do it? He's not going to, unless the Mets give him like $60 million a year on a 3-year deal. He's not coming here. This isn't a Max Scherzer situation, late in his 30s. It's a different scenario here. There's somebody out there that's going to give him a 4 or 5 year deal. And you can't keep on losing these type of pitchers because of 1 year. We talked about this, Chris. It's annoying. It's David Stearns with his stupid smirk that he was doing his interview with, and also talking about Peter Alonso. Like, again, I'm on David Stearns' side in regards to Peter Alonso about length of contract with that. But it just seems like he's like playing this mind games with everybody. And it's like, your philosophy sucks. Everybody knows it. And all you've been doing is acquiring former Yankees and former Brewers. And it's got us nowhere except no championships, no deep playoff runs. I know 2024, but even Carlos Mendoza, if anybody heard Carlos Mendoza when they talked about what happened in 2024 compared to 2025, even Carlos Mendoza says you can't plan for that type of magic to happen. It seemed unreal. So even the manager said that there was more of he basically put it as it was more of a fluke than overall talent and overall what happened with that team. Like, you can play the put the team in the same position in 2025, I don't think they would be as good as 2024 because there was a lot of luck involved. So they got to do better, Chris. They something has to change. And hearing David Stearns, the way he talked scares the hell out of me, and it brings back all those bad thoughts once again from David Stearns, where I think he's going to stick a lot to his philosophy. And you know what? At the end of this offseason, we talked about there's a lot of pathways not to screw this offseason up. He could screw this offseason up. And that's going to be a very bad thing, a very bad sign when it comes to his philosophy, because I don't believe it works.
Yeah, I think going back to the discussion about 1 versus 2 starters, I think that we will know about that decision from Stearns right away, depending on how they treat the Kodai Senga situation. He gave an update on the health of Kodai Senga, says he's doing really well. He's as healthy as he was in 2023, or feels like it, some nonsense like that. And so, yeah, and I know how you feel. You know how I feel about it too, because I don't want Kodai Senga as a part of this roster. I think that ship it's supposed to sail, but we'll see if it actually does or not. That is the one thing and the one guy that I look like. If they trade him, okay, I can see 2 pitchers coming on board. But if they don't, then I don't see a scenario where they go and get 2. They stick with 1 and just hope and pray for the resurgence of multiple guys in the rotation, which is tossing up a prayer, which is something that we also have said continuously you cannot do if you are in win now mode. We've said that countless of times. So we'll see what happens to Kodai Senga. I really do think on the pitching front, I don't think they're getting Framber. I don't think that they're getting a lot of these guys. I think that what they will do and make a serious effort on the free agent market if this guy is not in line for a 4th year, because 3 years apparently is the sweet spot. We saw it with the Mania deal, last offseason, and we probably will see it again this season if this comes to fruition. I think they like Michael King. I think they're going to do everything in their power to get Michael King in the door. And guess what? If you do that, you are, again, banking on the upside, because he did deal with an injury, multiple injuries last season that only had him throwing 75 innings. We really got a taste of him potentially the upside of an ace back in 2024, which was his first year as a full-time starter after that deal that sent him over to San Diego. And so I think that all signs are pointing to that right now with what we are hearing. And then it's about whether or not David Stearns, with this quote unquote best or top 3 farm system in all of baseball, is he going to dip into the prospect talent to go ahead and get the starting pitcher that he wants this offseason or not? And that is the biggest thing that remains to be seen, because a lot of people, we had the Joe Ryan discussions. A lot of people didn't want to send a guy like Jonah Tong over to Joe Ryan. It seems like Mets fans want the best of both worlds, in that they want these pitchers to come on board, but anytime any major prospect is named in a potential trade, people start backing out. Like, no, we can't possibly trade this guy for that guy, because this guy could be possibly, very heavy emphasis on possibly, the next best thing since sliced bread and Jacob deGrom 2.0. And so I think that if we're going to continue having those discussions, then we're never going to get a Tariq Skubal in the doors, right? If you're not willing to give up Jet Williams and Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat, yeah, that's a major haul for a rental, quote unquote, for 1 year. But I bet you, and this is going into the CBA negotiations, because we're in for a very brutal awakening of potentially no baseball next season, because this is going to drag on for a long time between the Players Association and the owners. I would think that most of these players like Skubal, who are in for a mega contract, want to get that done before the CBA kicks in. And so that's where I see the Mets having an advantage, or anybody that trades for Skubal, if it happens, because I'm not quite convinced that it does, but if it happens, they have that advantage in terms of that. But, again, scared money doesn't make any money, both with the approach to free agency, giving the extra year, and also sending the prospects over. One of these things has to give. You're either going to spend on starting pitching with the monetary value and add on to the payroll that way, or when you look at 2026, in terms of the luxury tax, you're going to have to go ahead and spend the prospect capital and save on the payroll, because most of these guys like Freddie Peralta, Tariq Skubal, etc., are under control for one more year, but it's a cheap year, right? It's like $8.5 million for Freddie, and I'm not sure what Skubal's arbitration is valued at, but it's not going to be a high costing season until you hit that extension and those extension talks. So we'll see what happens, man. I think everything is shaping up to be so. Like, let's just say Michael King's in the door. Yeah, that might be your number two if he shows up like a number two. But if he doesn't, because again, there is a risk with Michael King at the end of the day, given what he did last season, then you are looking at Nolan McLean right in the face and saying you might have to be our number two in this rotation, depending on if they go out there and spend for an actual ace. I think that because Michael King, you might as well label you might as well label Nolan McLean the ace of the rotation if you go get a Michael King type, because King would be your number two, I would have to imagine. And putting that pressure, again, I know that he finished the season off extremely well for the Mets. A lot to be like really happy about from the Nolan McLean perspective, but it's unfair to actually ask him to be an ace of the rotation in 2026, in my humble opinion. You can't do that. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like how many times we have to say the same thing about when it comes to David Stearns? You pay pitchers or you trade for them. The Mets have too many prospects to play. That's a fact. They have a starting pitcher in Jonathan who's not major league ready yet. You got Brandon Sproat, that's kind of borderline. You bring in Michael King again. What are we doing? Here we go again with the same problem again, because we're going to talk at the trade deadline. Oh, we need this guy and that guy. So whoever doesn't get traded this offseason, we know the names, are going to be available at the trade deadline. We're going to be talking about the same nonsense. I'd rather have the guy for 100 or in starting pitching terms, 30 games instead of maybe 9 games. Like it just doesn't make sense to me at all. Like you can't say I don't want to pay pitchers long-term deals and I don't want to trade major assets to acquire top pitching. So you're getting B-C level pitching. If you're lucky, you get B level pitching. There is nobody who is good in this starting pitching market that is going to take a 3-year deal and you're going to be excited about it. They take 3-year deals because they're either mostly injured or they're not that good. But again, I see the chat now with Met fans. Like, you guys are nuts. You don't want Tariq Skubal. Freddie Peralta, might cost a little bit too much. You don't want to pay 6 years for Framber Valdez. Let Jonathan come up here in August when the Mets might be already out of it because they have no starting pitching once again. Like, we're developing so far a really good bullpen. Do you see what happens when you have no good starting pitching? And what happens to a very good bullpen? The Mets started off with a very good bullpen last year. They broke down because the starters sucked and they couldn't go deep into games. This is what you want to deal with going into 2026? Like, I just don't understand it. And David Stearns is the biggest idiot in the world. Now, he could be playing us like crazy. And it might be a negotiating tactic, which again, it's like, you're negotiating, in the mirror. That's what he's doing. Because if you're not paying attention, why is it okay for the Phillies, the Yankees, the Mariners? Look at all the playoff teams. They can all trade their prospects. They can all sign all these people. But the Mets continue to have one of the top farm systems because they don't trade anybody. They traded 12 guys last year that nobody gave a shit about. Obviously Drew Gilbert was the one guy that Met fans cried over. And, oh my God, worst thing in the world. But it was 12 useless prospects for the most part. And they didn't trade anybody of significance. Drew Gilbert fell out of favor with this organization because other guys that played similar positions passed him. So, our farm system is good because we don't trade anybody. But every other team in the playoffs are making big trades. They're trading their prospects to get proven talent in here. And the Mets are just standing there saying, you have to hear your GM after the trade deadline talk about, Jonah Tong and this young guy. Oh, Kodai Senga is coming back, and he never did. Like, it's like, come on, guys. Like, what are we trying to do here? It just doesn't make sense at all. Like there is no solution if you continue to do the same thing. It did not work. It doesn't work what he's trying to do. Like free agent signings of short-term deals are pitchers that are not very good or have been injured but have really good stuff. That, in my opinion, that 3-year deal, and Shomanayo is a perfect example. That 3-year deal is more of a risk from either a guy who's a reclamation project who hasn't been good at years or a guy who's been often injured, because that's the only guys that get short-term deals, is more of a risk than Framber Valdez, who is consistently healthy, consistently throwing 30 starts, consistently throwing over 180 innings, and consistency a very damn good pitcher and giving him 6 years or 5 years. Like, what is the difference in risk? There's not much. I'd rather get the better pitcher because you save a couple of years on a deal. Like, how is that Shomanayo deal? Does anybody know Shomanayo is going to be in this rotation? For all we know, we can be in the bullpen. You know, and that's the problem. You paid him 3 years because everybody loved that deal because it was a short-term deal, high risk, high reward. It was a fucking disaster. And now we don't even know if he's going to be in a rotation. I mean, the way David Stearns is talking, Shomanayo might be our ace. Met fans, congratulations. Because that's what you're getting. That's what you want. You fell into his trap. You don't want to trade prospects. You don't want to give long-term deals. And now we're talking about Shomanayo also in this rotation as well. Probably because that's what you're talking about here. You bring in Michael King, Nolan McLean's your quote-unquote ace. Shomanayo is going to be a top 3 starter. Is everybody excited about that? A guy who did not want to have surgery to clean up his elbow, and now we have to worry about that all year too? That money is well spent on a 3-year deal for Shomanayo, $25 million a year? Or is it a couple of more years for better starting pitching? And that goes for Suarez. That goes for, Framber Valdez. Don't tell me that's not better money spent on a 5-6-year deal than a 3-year deal from a broken down guy that we couldn't even use as our ace last year because he broke down and didn't even barely pitched. And when he came back, he sucked. Like, what are we doing here? You can't have it both ways. Like, it's frustrating because it just doesn't make sense. The logic, there is no explanation that says this is a smart way of going about it. Because I don't want bad pitching. I don't want guys that are multi-hit.
So I'm taking from all this that you want Framber Valdez and you don't care what it takes to get him. You want to sign him.
If it's between Valdez or Michael King, free agent wise, it does.
Sure.
What is the difference? The guy is a reliever turned starter. Again, you just said he's injured, and he is a guy that the Padres, when they traded for him, when they got him in the Soto deal, right? It was like, wow, this guy can be a part of their rotation for good years because their rotation is kind of old. Great. And they don't even want him. So what does that tell you? So
I don't know if they don't. I don't know if they don't want him, Rob.
I don't know.
They don't have that organization is in shambles, and they're trying to. They're not going to make that kind of investment because they already have old pitching on their books, like Yu Darvish, etc.
Is what other teams are in on Michael King, right? You heard the Yankees, maybe the Orioles, right? Now the Orioles are kind of a weird thing, but you think the Dodgers or you think the Phillies are going to sign a guy like Michael King and say, "Oh, top end rotation arm"? No, they're not. They're not.
Well, the Dodgers, you can't compare the Dodgers though. They've lucked out already with Yamamoto and Sasaki and whoever else. So I mean, they were proactive in going out there and getting a question mark in a guy like Glass now, though, right? I mean, nobody knew
pitchers, what. These are guys that, when healthy, they're one of the better pitchers in baseball.
Well, for sure. Well, also Michael King. Okay, to be fair to Michael King, because I do like Michael King, by the way. I will.
Me too. But
I will defend Michael King on this stream.
Not
for
as a
sure.
number 2. That's a joke.
Well, he posted a 2.95 ERA in 2024, man. I know there was 1 year. I get it, but like we only have 2 years to go off of him as a starter.
Sure. But again, this is a Clay Holmes situation. Like he could be good and he could not be good. So it's a huge question mark already. And then for everybody who loves Nolan McLean, it's not even half a season. Like, let's not think that everybody thinks he's going to take a step up. He can take a step back. Like, that is the risk you're taking here. And Jonah Tong might not find that secondary, tertiary pitch. Brandon Sproat might not find it yet. And then what do? Oh, let's wait until the deadline. Like, this is what I don't understand. You got to limit what you need at the deadline. That's what the offseason is for. This is why it doesn't make sense to me. Like, nobody thinks that David Stearns is going to trade a bunch of prospects for top starting pitching. Why do you think he's going to do it mid-season? He's already shown back-to-back years that he's not doing it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's no logical explanation to say that, oh, well, let's bring in Michael King. Nolan McLean is our ace, and maybe we'll get so we're only going to bring in Michael King here?
No, you get Michael King, and this is what I'm saying is that you get Michael King, and I tweeted this out earlier today on X. I was like, if you give me Michael King in a top line starter, listen, we know Tariq Skubal is the cream of the crop. That's like nobody's comparing to him. Skeens is not going to be available for trade this offseason. The Pirates have already said so. So there's nobody really comparable. The next best option, I think, of all the names that we've been talking about, is Freddie Peralta. There's a step down, right? Freddie Peralta. It's not fair to even try to compare him to Skubal because he's not even in the same realm. Not many people are with the back-to-back Cy Young. But if you give me Michael King and Tariq Skubal, I'm over the moon happy about that. If you give me Freddie Peralta and Michael King, I'm still pretty happy with that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but it's the same logic, right? It's the same logic. You're going for the second fiddle because he's a little cheaper, but he's also still a rental, a guy you're gonna have to pay. So, like, that's what I don't understand. Like,
but you have to, but nobody knows if Skubal, like, you can be okay. So there's an opposite end to the spectrum, right?
Peralta and Tariq Skubal gets traded somewhere else.
But that could get flipped though, right? You wait too long to see if Skubal doesn't get traded or gets traded. He ends up not getting traded, and that time that you wasted with that, Freddie Peralta is already out the door, and he's already in a different organization. You can say the same thing in reverse about that.
But if the Tigers are willing, again, you can wait either way. But it doesn't seem like the Mets are pushing. Like, it seems like Garrett Crochet all over again. Like,
you want the Mets? Okay, so I see what you're saying. You want the Mets to be aggressors, right? Like, but
why not? But why are they never? That's the problem. That's why they lost out on Garrett Crochet,
sure.
and that is why I think they didn't do anything in the starting pitching market last year. I know a lot of people didn't get traded, but they needed a reliable starter. And they didn't even do that.
But we don't know. Like, there's been a report that came out, I think it was 2 days ago, that the Tigers have listened in on calls for Skubal already, and teams have started calling. The Mets are clearly one of those teams. Like, there's no chance that they're not. There's no chance. It's not publicly stated.
How far are they in, though? Because if it's the Garrett Crochet situation, then you might as well close the book because they're not going to get him.
That's the thing too, is that, like, you're not going to just sit down. You're not going to go to the Tigers directly and say, we're putting down 4 top 10 prospects in our farm system right now, get this deal done. That's not, like, I'm just saying that what's being publicly reported.
Again, I'm sorry.
I just said what's being publicly reported right now, just because we don't know the Mets. It hasn't been stated that they've called in for Skubal. Doesn't mean they haven't, and doesn't mean that they don't plan on being aggressors. We will see how this all ends, at the end of the day, I'm sure. But, if you're telling me right now, I would be disappointed. I would be furious alongside you if there was a report that said teams called in for Tigers ace Skubal. The Mets were not one of those teams. That's a red flag, but I'm sure they've already called. And so the market's going to shape up. My thing is that it's still not guaranteed at the end of the day. It's not guaranteed that Skubal gets moved. I think for the Tigers, if they know they're not even going to come close to what he wants in free agency, you got to trade him. But they're also...
But the wait around for Skubal doesn't mean the Mets can't sign another pitcher, a good, like Framber Valdez. Like, that's the thing. It's not like, oh, let's wait for Tariq Skubal, but you know what? Let's just sign Michael King in the process, because if all shit doesn't work out, we'll get Michael King and probably some has-been that hasn't been good in 4 years and sign him and say, oh, we got Nolan McLean and we got Michael King. Like, you can do other things. Like, why is it okay to sign Framber Valdez in the process of waiting for Tyrese Skubal or even Freddie Peralta?
Because they don't want to give him the same reason you don't want to give Peter Alonso a 6-year deal is the same reason David Stearns doesn't want to give a 32-year-old a 6-year deal in Framber Valdez. I mean, that's just that simple. It's the logic. It's the same logic.
Then he shouldn't go into free agent market and pitch in at all. Like, again, I don't see the risk in a 6-year deal for Valdez and a 6-year deal for Michael King, you rather give a guy Framber Valdez, who's predominantly been healthy his whole career, than a guy who was just injured because it's a bargain deal.
But we're not okay. Yeah, we're not talking about 6 years for King. We're talking about 3.
But it's still it's a bigger risk from a guy who's been injured last year than a Framber Valdez who's been the epitome of health and reliable. And you're going on 2 years only of Michael King, and he was hurt last year, who didn't have a good season. So it's like there's still nobody said that Sean Manaea wasn't a risk. You kind of, it was like, all right, it's a good deal, but Sean Manaea was a risk.
Yeah, I mean, I like the deal. I think everybody liked the deal given the circumstance.
Sure, but it's like it's a risk, and that's what I just don't understand. Like, everybody acts like it's not a risk. Like, oh, it's a 3-year deal, it's not a risk. Of course, it's a risk. They're not that good, and they've been hurt. That's the only reason why you give short-term deals to pitchers like that, because they haven't been good in a few years, who used to be good, or they were recently injured. That is why they got Griffin Cannon, right? That is why they got Frankie Montas to a 2-year deal. That is the reason why they got Clay Holmes, because he wasn't a starter. Like, it's just, the logic makes no sense. The philosophy sucks. Like, if Michael King has a great year, it's because of luck. It's because they fell into something good. Like, that's great. But that's a risk. Because if Nolan McLean takes a step back, you are absolutely fucked. Completely. Who's stepping up? David Peterson? Who's stepping up? Sean Manaea is going to be healthy with his, loose bodies in his elbow that he didn't have surgery on. That's another risk. Why are we going back to another season starting? Again, it's a long off season with more question marks again, because I'm going to have the same conversation with you on opening day. If this is the nonsense we're going to be talking about the rotation is going to be the detriment of this team.
Yeah, I mean, I hear your point too. I hear your point. Like, if it was up to me, I would also go get Framber. I'm not, like I said, I don't know if but the thing is like, then you're talking about desperation mode, right? You're saying to go do, and I know you said this before, right? But like, how many Mets fans called the Dylan Cease deal trash for 7 years of Dylan Cease? And I know that Dylan Cease is also inconsistent, and so is Valdez is also inconsistent, but not to the same tone as Dylan Cease. I'm not trying to compare those guys, but what I'm saying is that the Blue Jays made it a point, because they were desperate with the rotation and to just build on to what they already had. They wanted to go out there and make sure that Dylan Cease could not say no to their offer, right? And they overpaid for a guy that all of us Mets fans are sitting here scratching our heads. We were talking about Dylan Cease potentially even taking like a prove-it year deal, and he got 7 years worth $210 million. That's crazy.
But what did we do? We gave credit to the Blue Jays because they wanted him and they got him.
But they did, but like, do you want the Mets to be that desperate though? Like, and that's fine if you do.
How are they not desperate? They didn't even have a good rotation.
Sure.
We have Senga, often injured, not reliable. We have David Peterson, who broke down at the end of the year last year. We got Clay Holmes, never pitched 170 innings in his life, and he's coming back. We got Sean Manaea, who was mostly injured all year and terrible, who came back. That is our rotation right now. And Nolan McLean, who has 10 starts, 11 starts under his belt. How is that not a risk? Like, you have to take risk when your rotation looks like that. Like, let's not act like, I'm not saying you, but in general, Met fans act like we have Jacob deGrom right here in this rotation to lead our way. Now, then you can mess around if you got a top starter. Nolan McLean is not a top starter until he proves it longer than 11 games. Not his fault. I'm not blaming him. But you're going to wait until 15 games into his 15 starts into his season when the trade deadline comes around, or 20 starts, and say, oh, well, we need an ace now, and you're back to square one. Limit your question marks in your rotation, because we see what it does to a team that has World Series aspirations. It destroys your bullpen, and it gives your offense no freaking chance of winning ball games because they're always behind and always have to come back. That is the problem with the Mets rotation. There is no rotation right now. It's Nolan McLean and a bunch of question marks. Nobody could say and keep a straight face that anybody else in that rotation, and even Nolan McLean's slightly a question mark because he only pitched 11 games. I think he's going to be really good, but it's a question mark. There is nobody that is reliable in this rotation right now. You need reliable arms.
I get, then I understand that. Like I said, I've said it countless of times. For people who haven't heard it for the umpteenth time, I would love to have Framber Valdez on my team. I think that to get him in the doors, you need to overpay objectively. But if that's what it takes, maybe I would do it, because let's be honest, we are desperate for some sort of workhorse in this rotation. But
Correct.
the thing is that David Stearns isn't going to do it. And that's what everyone just needs to understand. I've made peace with the fact that he's just not going to do it. And so I'm not even expecting it at this point. I think people just need to make peace with the fact that he's not going to do it. And so the larger question is that, I guess, if you want to open that, if we want to continue to be angry at that, like, at what point does David Stearns lose trust and gets held accountable and his job's on the line? We can have that conversation. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But like I said, if they end up like, to put a cap on on it for me, they end up with Michael King. I know that there's uncertainty there. I get it, but I'd still take Michael King. I think he's a serviceable and will be serviceable pitcher. And if they go out there and get a trade, if you get Michael King, you need to trade for a top line guy. You need to make another corresponding move, because Michael King only getting added into this rotation for 2026 and also just relying on Nolan McLean to be basically your ace or co-ace alongside Michael King is not a good move. You need to get that second starter. But like I said, Framber Valdez would make things a lot easier with the free agent route. You control your own destiny there with the money given out. It's just not going to happen, man. It's just not going
Yeah,
to happen.
and you know what? A desperate team in the Blue Jays that were inches away of winning the World Series last year. They got the Game 7 of the World Series. They got Kevin Gausman leading their way, who was a damn good pitcher in the postseason, was one of their best starters. They got, the resurgent, the craziness of Trey Savage. Oh, again, big question mark for sure, because you never know, right? They have Shane Bieber, right? Dylan Cease. I mean, it seemed desperate, but they weren't seeing Dylan Cease as an ace at all, because they got Gausman, who just pitched outstanding in the postseason. So that's the thing. Like, this is a team that inches away of winning the World Series, and they got one of the better. Whatever you think of Dylan Cease, he was one of the better pitchers on the market, and they went to go get him. They didn't play no games. They were aggressive in the market, and they got him. Just because it might have been an overspend doesn't mean it's not a good deal, because Dylan Cease can pitch to what he has, and he's still your number 2 and number 3. Dylan Cease would be the Mets ace. Like, that's the sad part. Like, Nolan McLean won't be starting opening day. It would be Dylan Cease if you're paying him that much money. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's the problem, though. Like, everybody talked about it was desperate, and I can agree it's desperate. But at least the Blue Jays have a rotation. The Mets don't.
Well, okay. You said Gosman. You said who else is in that rotation? Because outside of Gosman,
Barrios, who didn't pitch in the postseason, but again,
they want to trade him. They said that they're talking about trading him.
It's a hard contract to him. They do got Shane Bieber, who came back from injury. That was a guy that we both wanted at the deadline when he was coming back from injury. He's going to be healthy going into this. And again, I'm not excited about it, but they have more of proven guys that been there, done that before. The Mets don't. Not guys that we can trust. And again, I'm not saying that they're world beaters or anything like that by any means. But it's a situation where, everybody says, oh, the Blue Jays were desperate. Were they? They had Kevin Gausman that pitched outstanding in the postseason, and he's still leading the rotation. The Mets don't have a Kevin Gausman in their rotation. They don't.
Okay, but Kevin Gausman is a great pitcher, but he's not a top pitcher in the league. Let's not act like he is.
But he's their ace. He's a guy who's pretty damn good. I can tell you right now. You put him in the Mets rotation, he's the ace right now, right?
I mean, he's 34 years old.
Okay.
He's been a workhorse over the past 5-6 years. That I can definitely agree with. This is a guy that the Mets really wanted in their rotation, by the way, too.
Another one they didn't want to give an extra year to, just like George Springer.
Well, but Gausman started off that year terribly. I think with the Blue Jays, I do not think they have a sure rotation. I think they have a lot of question marks in their rotation. That Blue Jays World Series run does not happen if Kevin Gausman doesn't pitch to the tune of a 2-point-something ERA in the second half, and if Savage doesn't come onto the scene.
But he's been good. prior to that, like it's not like this guy just came out of nowhere and all of a sudden he found it after 5 years.
Agreed.
He's been damn good, but that's the problem, right?
Sure.
Would you rather go to war with Kevin Gausman and Dylan Cease or Nolan McLean and Michael King? I mean, come on. Like, you got to be out of your mind. An unproven Nolan McLean and a guy, Michael King, who has 2 years as a starter under his belt and was hurt last year. Come on.
I don't see it with Cease, man. I just don't see.
I'm not a big fan of Cease, but we got to be out of our mind. We think that's a better one too.
But he's he's unproven too. Like Cease is unproven. That's my point.
Dylan Cease is unproven. He's been a starter, reliable starter.
Reliable. This guy. You love ERA, right? A lot of people here love ERA. 4.55 in 2025, 4.58 in 2023.
Okay.
He's had one season where he's posted below.
Here's the problem, right? The Mets didn't need great pitching last year. They needed reliable pitching. How many starts have you had the last couple of years? Because nobody seems to care about that. But I mean, we got 30 starts out of who? Clay Holmes, and he was solid. Everybody calling him a great pitcher all of a sudden. Like, it's like we need reliable starters, right? Framber Valdez, it's not because he can strike out a lot or he can get a lot of outs. His ERA is pretty good. It's about being reliable. The guy
reliable but not consistent though. Cease isn't consistent.
I agree with that, but we don't have either. Who's consistent?
So you're saying that so by this logic, you would take Mitch Keller.
If the Mets had guys that pitch to a 4 ERA that pitch every 5th day, the Mets would have made the playoffs last year.
So you want Mitch Keller. You should be pushing for Mitch Keller.
Give me him. He's better than everybody the Mets have.
I'm taking Michael King over Mitch Keller, man. I'm sorry.
No.
Yes, for sure. Sure.
No.
I'm taking Michael King all day over Mitch Keller.
I don't know about that. Michael, 2 years of Michael King and 1 year hurt? I don't know about that, man. Come on. That's crazy.
I'm telling you, I take him over Mitch Keller.
I don't know about that.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't give Michael King 3 years. He's more of a risk than Framber Valdez. He is. Like,
okay, sure, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that Framber's not a risk. He's just Stearns just doesn't want to overprice him or pay above value, whatever.
We both want Framber Valdez. I understand Stearns doesn't want to do it. I'm just saying, like, when you go to the B and C level rotation, you're going to get B and C level results. More often than not, you're going to get B and C level results. I'm sorry. You are. Like, we're going to be talking about this in July, about the same nonsense if we don't get the guys that we should be getting.
I want guys that will make a difference in this rotation and are guys that at their highest ceiling are not to the level of Manaea, Kodai Senga, and Clay Holmes, whatever. Like Mitch Keller is another one of those guys production level-wise, right? Dylan Cease has been one of those guys, and he's also proven that he's been a top starter. Again, unpredictability. Same thing with Michael King. I agree with you, but I'm just saying when you project out the ceiling of these guys, that also has to be taken into consideration. But I'm saying this right now, Michael King over Mitch Keller. I'm just saying that right now.
I can't go with a guy who's pitched 2 years and was hurt last year.
Dylan Cease did not deserve a 7-year contract.
He's going to be reliable. I'm sorry. Like, give me reliability over a guy who's unpredictable. I'm sorry. Like, Michael King is unpredictable. He was hurt last year. He was a guy that pitched a lot of innings his first year. And, oh, guess what, Chris? Haven't we heard this story before? He pitched a ton of innings in year 1 as a starter, and then he got hurt the following year. Sounds familiar? It sounds like Sean Manaea.
Who's that? Oh, Michael King?
Right, and that's the problem. Like, if Michael King's a risk, he is. Like, I'm sorry, he is. Like, you better get Terry Scuba or Freddie Peralta, or it's going to be a complete disaster.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the assumption is that David Stearns is willing to trade for one of those guys.
But if he's not traded, and it feels like he doesn't want to trade top prospects for rentals, then Peralta's out of the question too. Then. Right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it just, like, why go to the B route when you can get the A route? I'm not saying Terry Scuba is going to get traded. But, again, we talked about this. If he gets traded and he's not a New York Met, that's a bad job by David Stearns because he has the assets to do so. So you're going to be cheap about it. Go Freddie Peralta. It's a good addition. I'm not saying it's not. But maybe two top 10 prospects will take it because it's not like the Brewers are going to give him away for free. And he's a rental as well.
Okay. But what is the rental part of it matter? Like, does that matter?
That's what people talk about Tyreek Skubal.
I don't care. I know people
I know
do,
you
but
don't care,
I could care less about
that's what I'm
that.
saying. Like, there's too many people in the chat that would rather get Freddie Peralta than Tyreek Skubal. There's not a lot of difference except for what, maybe 2 prospects. And even you said yesterday you don't think it's going to take 4 top 10 prospects to get Tyreek Skubal, most likely. So what is it? 1 more prospect to get the best pitcher in baseball over a guy who's been reliable and damn good in Peralta. Again, I'm not against getting Peralta. But don't tell me Peralta, King, and McLean is something that you're going to be so excited about. I'm just not. That's
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. Fine is
I'd be fine. I'd be fine with that if
Fine
Skubal doesn't get moved this offseason. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I just feel it's a Gary Crochet situation all over again. Like,
okay, but so then you're saying you would take you. So then you're saying you would take Framber over Peralta, then, right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Because you know you're gonna have him.
No way.
Because you know you're gonna have him, though. That's the thing. Like, why do we act like Freddie Peralta is gonna be here for 1 year and then we're gonna sign him? Like, you can't have that logic against, which not you, but in general, like Tyreek Skubal, that you're gonna lose him. All Framber Valdez is money, and he's been reliable. You're not giving up assets. If you're so worried about this is David Stearns. If you're so worried about giving up assets, then go get Framber Valdez. It's only money. Peralta is going to cost you money and prospects, right? That's the conversation we were having with people in the chat about Tyreek Skubal. You got to give up assets and money. Framber Valdez is just money. That's why it's the more smarter route. Like, that's the thing. It's
but
not
you're
having an argument about who's good, who's not. It's just
but
the
you're
fact that the Peralta.
But you're settling, though, Rob. You're settling. That's
Framber
the
Valdez
issue.
is not settling.
Framber Valdez. If you have the option to get Freddie Peralta, you are settling for Framber Valdez. That's correct.
This is my point, though. But here's the thing: why get Freddie Peralta and give up 2 prospects when you can get Tyreek Skubal? Let's say they're both traded, but it's 3 prospects instead of 2.
Sure, I'm doing the trade for Skubal. I think everybody in their right mind would agree to
but
that.
That's what I'm saying. But that's saying what's the difference in Stearns' logic over Peralta and Skubal? You're gonna have to pay both of them at the end of the year anyway, or one of them, wherever you might have. You're still giving up assets and money when Framber Valdez is just money, and you should get another one to be,
who's said that though? Like, if there's let's get this out the way. If David Stearns is looking at both guys that are for sure being traded, he knows that, and he's not willing to go above and beyond prospect-wise to get Skubal, he's an idiot. That's well established.
But I'm just saying, I'm not arguing with your thought process. I don't mind your thought process, but it's the fact that Michael King and Peralta is the B plan if he didn't want to get Tyreek Skubal or Framber Valdez. It's stupid.
It's the B plan if Skubal is not on the table to be traded.
No, it would be an A plan if Tyreek Skubal is not traded. Then it's a great pivot. Right. But if Tyreek Skubal is traded, it's settling.
Correct. Correct. We are on the same page. Yes, we're on the same page
for
sure.
I'm not saying it's going to be terrible. I mean, it's better than what we had. I'm going to be okay with that. But Met fans should be upset if that's the case. Like, Freddie Peralta is a damn good pitcher. I'm not going to be mad about that. And if you bring in Michael King with Nolan McLean, it's not the end of the world. It's still a risk, but I understand going that option because Tyreek Skubal didn't get traded. Even though, to be quite honest, you should sign Valdez because it's only money. Like, you're going to have to give – what do you think King's going to get? 3 years? He's probably going to get close to $20 million a year, right? Because it seems like bad pitchers are going to get $15 million.
I'd probably put it at like close to what Mania got, really.
Jesus Christ. Like, for a couple more $1 million a year, a couple more years, you can get Framber Valdez. Like, it's just, oh man, that's crazy.
Well, it depends on what the final number is. Like, if it's 5 to 6 years, like that you're talking about maybe $100 million more for Framber Valdez, potentially.
But you don't have to give up any assets.
I get that part, Rob. I do. I understand that one.
But does Stearns get that? Because he seems to not want to trade assets, but doesn't want to spend money. Like, that's the thing. Like
I know, I agree. You cannot have both. Like, if you're not going to go out there,
the logic makes no sense, my friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just weird.
I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Like, we were kind of on the same page, but not when it comes to what. Like, we understand both areas are. It's going to be fine. Like, if they do that, it's not going to be terrible. But it's like, it seems like they're settling. And when they settled last year, and again, Freddie Peralta is better than anything the Mets got last year. When they didn't get Gary Crochet, but
By a
it
long
seems
shot, yeah.
like why not? Like if Detroit is really, and there is no reports that the Tigers are not trading Terry Skubal. Like, why wouldn't you put your best offer on the table for Terry Skubal? Right? You could say no. Like if they say, "Oh, we love that trade," and then you might step back and like, I don't know if I want to give that. I'm okay with David Stern saying that, but it's like be aggressive with it. Like make that best offer. You can always pull it back if you get a little concerned or you get a little worried. You start to perspirate a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing. Like it's like I feel like he's offering a bullshit package, and it's like, oh, well, we're part of the conversation, and everybody else who doesn't probably have a better farm system are giving better offers because he's afraid to give whoever. Like,
See, this is what I'm saying. Like, David, I don't want any part of Zach Gallen. If you're trying to tell me that we're not going to go out there and get Michael King, I'm not. Then you should not even entertain Zach Gallen. I'm sorry, Zach Gallen is not it. But no, I agree, Rob. Like, and I'm only saying that about that comment because I've seen Zach Gallen's name posted by many people. I'm not in on Zach Gallen. I don't think the Mets are going to be either, which is kind of crazy because I thought Mr. Bob Nightingale reported that he is Zach Gallen is not better than Michael King. Stop it. Enough of that.
I mean,
Anyways,
longevity, reliable, sure, but yeah, I tend to agree. I think King is probably the better choice because
dude,
I mean,
Zach Gallen.
Zach Gallen's a 1-year deal. Then it's a low risk, high reward. But I mean, you have to get something else better to, complement Zach Gallen because he's a risk. He is.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of guys that are risks on this market, essentially.
Yeah, and I see somebody said, Brad was like, I like Framber Valdez, but I don't think he'll age well, and that's fine. I understand that logic. The reason why the Astros don't let him go is because the Astros don't pay anybody. Like they look at all the guys that are on other teams that were one of their stars. They don't pay their guys. They never do. They only paid, the biggest cheater in baseball. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Buzzer Beater. Altuve, that's the only guy they paid. They don't pay anybody. So it's not about them. If they're the type of team that pays their guys, Framber Valdez would be an Astro. But they don't pay their guys. They never do. Springer's gone, Correa's gone. Many of these guys are gone. So you want to see that super chat real quick?
Yeah, shout out to Chris. Do you expect Luis Angel or Beatty to be traded? Beatty, as much as I think that it would be the perfect time to sell high on Brett Beatty, I know that's going to piss off a lot of Mets fans because Brett Beatty, with this great season, I guess, to his standards of what he's posted, it's not great. Come on. Like it was an average season that is made great because one of the guys that we have had so much hopes and expectations for finally decided to live up to some of the hype. Like that's what it is. And we are going to bank on that, according to Carlos Mendoza, in 2026 for him to try to replicate that. I think he's talented. I think that this could be a right step in the right direction in 2025. But I think that with the third base situation, the Mets, that's one more thing that they will have to worry about if they do get rid of Brett Beatty. And I don't think they want to open that can of worms just yet. So they're going to rely on Beatty by default. Luis Angel Acuna, I think he's out of here. And we have to talk about the outfield portion of what, like, we've been talking about pitching this, pitching that. That's the biggest need. We have to talk about offense because David Stearns just said at the winter meetings that they are in the market for an outfielder. So there's been smoke about Luis Robert and the Mets circling back on him. That could be a potential avenue to get Luis Angel Acuna on another team. There was an earlier report that I dropped a video about a couple weeks ago talking about Jake Myers, a defensive-minded center fielder that had a really good year with the bat for Houston that could be on the trade block. Multiple avenues also to go down with the outfield. Neither of those options I really want, to be honest, because that would mean that you're going to shift over Carson Bench in left field, which means you're out on Cody Bellinger. You're out on a lot of these outfield guys, and you have to rely on retaining Peter Alonso or Kyle Schwarber and going after Kyle Schwarber. We'll get to Schwarber here in just a second. But I'd rather just see the Bench, Tyrone Taylor platoon, get me somebody that can be impactful in left field with the bat, right? Yeah. and just keep Benj in center field. I do understand, though, shifting him to a corner outfield spot. It's a little bit less demanding as a rookie. I completely get that, setting him up for the best success possible. But I'm just not really like getting a Jake Myers, or at this point, Luis Robert is not a needle mover. I would take the risk on Robert, but you're also trying to, you're going to be taking on $20 million for the next 2 seasons, which also isn't enticing given the production level there. But if you have to give up, like, let's say Luis Angel Acuna and maybe one lower level prospect to get Robert, sure, because I don't think anybody really values Luis Angel Acuna like that in this organization. I was the biggest Luis Angel Acuna fan. I was lobbying to get him at second base. They did, and he didn't run away with the opportunity. And so therefore, I just think that his time to get a solidified role starting wise on this team is long gone. So I do appreciate the super chat, Chris, and hopefully that answers your question.
Chris, if I get another comment after streams are over in regards to I'm not trading Luis Angel Acuna, like he's a role player, he's a bench player, he's a defensive replacement and a pinch runner. That's what he is right now. And people are like, do you see what he's doing in winter ball? Have you seen these pitches in winter ball? They're terrible. Most of them are terrible. They're a bunch of has-beens that haven't been in the league, if ever. And yeah, you might get a couple of good pitchers there, but come on, guys. The guy is still trying to hit home runs. The guy's not going to be a power hitter. See, this is the problem with Mets fans. Like, this guy is not going to be a power hitter. He's not. And if he is, then all his skill sets are a waste. He's a fast, extremely fast runner who don't put the bat on the ball, who doesn't put the ball on the ground, doesn't take walks, and his average is extremely low for a guy who has that tremendous amount of speed. Like, he's not a good player. Like, yeah, he'd be good for your bench, but we have a top prospect in Luis Angel Acuna who could be used better in an asset in a trade than being an asset on a bench, playing sporadically, losing value by day. And I'm not saying it's a bad bench piece, but the logic of having a top 10 prospect in your farm system and he's going to be a role player for you is the stupidest fucking thing that I've ever heard. It's dumb. You could probably get something better that can help your team overall in a starting position, because there's enough teams that are going to take Luis Angel Acuna to possibly get, like Chris said, a Luis Robert. Again, it's not a needle mover at all, and it's $20 million, but the potential is there. Right? I don't see Luis Angel Acuna as a starter. He's not playing second base, clearly. He's probably not playing third base. He had multiple opportunities last year. And oh, by the way, on opening day, they gave the opportunity to him over Brett Beatty because of a lefty on the mound. Oh, that guy, Framber Valdez, that shut down the Mets? Yeah. Like, the guy is not good. And everybody gets excited about him hitting home runs in winter ball. He shouldn't be hitting home runs. He's not going to be a 3 hitter. He's not going to be a 4 hitter. He's not going to be a 5 hitter. He's a number 9 hitter and a leadoff hitter. But he's none of those because he can't put the bat on the ball. He strikes out too much. He doesn't walk, and his speed is useless as a starter on a team until he figures that out. And again, why are we waiting for this guy to figure it out? He has nowhere to play. You're not playing Acuna over Brett Beatty right now if that's going to be the third base situation. You're just not. Simeon's your second baseman. Lindor's your shortstop. What, are you going to put Acuna at first base? No, of course not. They're not putting Acuna in the outfield. They're just not doing it. You have Carson Benj, and I can understand that. But, speaking back to the outfield, Chris, that is why Bellinger makes so much sense. Because if you're going to use Carson Benj as a guy who's going to potentially be in the outfield, let's say he does get the starting job and Taylor is obviously the backup plan just in case. That's why Bellinger makes so much sense. Because if Benj doesn't work out, and we know Tyron Taylor's bat's going to fall apart sometime during the year, Bellinger can always go to center field, and left field, you figure that part out. I mean, depending on what you do at first base as well. And this is the other problem when it comes to David Stearns and just the roster setup in general. We have too many guys that are on options, that are on 1-year deals, that leads to, well, I mean, you traded Brandon Nimmo, that's kind of like, whoops. But you kind of have a lot of guys that had options that, chose to do, use their option and have 1 year deal type of guys, that leaves your roster very exposed. And we're talking about all these situations where the Mets have to fill roster spots. Like you have to fill probably 2 rotation spots. You got to fill 2 outfield spots right now. And you also, there's still a question mark at first base and third base. Well, let's leave third base out of it. Let's say it's Brett Beatty, but you still have a hole at first base. Like that's David Stearns' fault, having so many guys or so many holes in his roster where you need a ton of talent getting pushed into your, from free agency and trades. Like that's a lot of work to do in an offseason. We've talked about that before as well. Like you leave yourself very exposed to not get everything you need. And now you're relying on young kids that are unproven. Again, I'm not mad about that, but be defiant. It doesn't seem like Stearns is defiant sometimes because it seems like, oh yeah, Carson Bench could be that guy. We're going to use our young kids, but yet, trade for Luis Robert. Like, how are you using your young kid if you're trading for Luis Robert? He's clearly going to play, making $20 million. You know what I'm saying, Chris? Like, that's why Bellinger makes a lot of sense. And I'm not going to be overly excited about Bellinger because he's another one who's a risk. But at least he's proven. At least he can do it. We see him do it in New York last year. You put him in between Soto and let's say Lindor, or let's say Alonso comes back. Like that's you could do a lot worse than that. And he's great defensively. He could play all outfield positions. He could play first base. Like I'm all on board giving Benji either center field or left field, but you got to bring in somebody that's worthy of bringing in. That if Benj doesn't work out, at least for the foreseeable future, early on, you got somebody else to rely on the outfield because you can't throw Tyron Taylor out there in center field because Benj doesn't work out. And you didn't get Robert, you didn't get Bellinger, and now left field is kind of God knows who. You already got an outfield of Juan Soto who's not very good defensively, and your center field and left field is very much a question mark during the season. So it's going to be tough to figure out what he's going to do. Because you could use Carson Bench all you want, but you need a proven guy out there. Either Bellinger, Luis Robert, I'm not going to say proven, but, he could play the position very well, and hopefully the bat picks up in a new environment. But you can't throw Carson Bench out there and not have somebody else come in to play left or center who's proven.
It would be absolutely malpractice to not spend money this free agency on a big bat, whether it's bringing back Pete Alonso, whether it's spending on Bellinger, whether it's spending on Schwarber, right? I don't think that Bellinger, with what he's going to be asking for, let me ask you this. Who would you rather give a long-term deal to, 5 years of Pete Alonso or 5 years of Bellinger? I think I know what you're going to say, but
I don't think one bat's enough. Like I want both of them. That's the problem. Like getting Pete Alonso back is throwing the lineup back to what it was last year. Like that doesn't do it. That doesn't move the needle for me either, right? Met fans are going to be jumping for joy, act like we won the World Series because we brought back Pete Alonso. But bringing Cody Bellinger isn't enough either. Like so, getting one of them is also malpractice, in my opinion.
There's I can't see them getting 2 of these guys. I really can't.
Then we're very much in trouble. Unless Carson Bench steps up offensively, or Brett Beatty has a crazy year that nobody's expecting, or Marcus Semien finds his, the fountain of youth and hits 35 home runs for us, then what are we doing here?
I don't know, honestly. That's what I'm kind of just trying to think of this myself of like, how do you phase out, right? The veterans on this team while trying to convince this fan base after getting Juan Soto that you're going to believe in all these young guys on the pitching side and the offensive side. Like Carson Bench is probably going to be good. I mean, it's not guaranteed that he's going to take off right away. I mean, we've seen how long it took Brett Beatty to really take off. Can't rely on Mark Vientos. Luis Angel Acuna is not getting the job done. Ronnie Mauricio is a super question mark as well moving forward. You don't know if he's going to be on the team. Like, the same thing applies for the offense that we just talked about, the pitching, and that there's just a lot of uncertainty, and you are going to be taking a big chance to try to rely on these guys that have or may not have really performed in the past couple of seasons for you. So I just don't see financially David Stearns, again, I would love to have both Pete Alonso and Bellinger on the same team, or going really, all out and having Schwarber and Pete Alonso. I just don't see financially the Mets doing that, even though that's how you build a lineup to compete against the Dodgers. It's just not really possible. The best thing that I think will happen is you get one of those bats, whoever it is. I think right now, for me personally, I think it'd be between Schwarber and Pete Alonso to have that power stick alongside Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. And then you'd have to make a move for a game. I don't say game changing. I'm going to be careful of how I word this, because Luis Robert is not a game changing bat right away. He is a upside guy, and we are sick of upside guys, quote unquote, on the pitching side. But that's what you'd be investing in with Robert, who has the potential to hit you 20 plus home runs and also provide a lot of power in your lineup. We just haven't seen it. And that guy can also play DH. Oh, and by the way, he plays a really competent center field as well. So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's with the amount of holes on this roster, that's why I don't think it's feasible to go out there and get two big bats, because you still have the pitching.
If he's not gonna get two big bats, then the Nimmo trade was absolutely stupid. Right? I'm not the biggest fan of Nimmo, but you are losing offense there, right? Like, then it's a stupid trade, right? We talked about the Nimmo trade is not going to be graded until what they do for the lineup post Nimmo trade. That's what we talked about during the Nimmo trade, right? It's what he does after that is going to dictate if it was a good trade for trading for Marcus Semien and trading Brandon Nimmo. You can't bring Pete Alonso and not do anything. Okay, Carson Bench playing. I mean, right now we have Tyrone Taylor and Carson Bench is our outfield, center field, left field. That's not good. So we're talking. Let's say the Mets only get Pete Alonso back. So we're back to square one. You lose Nimmo, so now you only got Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. Everything's a question mark.
I agree with that. That's 100% correct. And then that's the thing. That's the thing about both sides of the ball, is that if David Stearns is going to sit here and try to tell us that these kids are going to come up here and make a difference right away on a win now team, I'm not buying into it. You're wasting Lindor's years. Whatever happens with Juan Soto, you're wasting. I mean, Juan Soto's going to be here for a while, so you have that, I guess, ability to wait that out. But it's just not a good strategy. That's not a good strategy to me. So I definitely agree with that. And the Semien trade did make me kind of scratch my head, because now you have reports that Ketel Marte's out there. I know that there's a lot of question marks about Marte and the fit and who's going after him now, but that's a guy that I would definitely insert into this lineup up the middle with Lindor, especially with the caliber of an offensive weapon that he is.
You're going to get those assets when he just traded for Marcus Semien. They're not doing that. It's even more stupid to do that. You might as well just trade pitching in. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that, but there's also financial implications there as well with Marte and the contract that he has, whatever we know about that. I made a video about it. But anyways, I agree with you. I think that it would be a little bit underwhelming to come away with one of these bats, but I think that, I don't know if I want to make that statement. But no, going back to the question though, Bellinger or Pete Alonso, both 5 years, you can get one of them. Who are you taking? I'm going to. I don't care if it's the same. I'm going Pete Alonso.
You have to go Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
Because again, Pete Alonso is less of a risk.
Yeah.
Right. That's why Pete Alonso Bellinger is a hell of a lot more better, because you solidify your outfield spot. You got your first base back. Your infield's kind of set at this point. The only thing you're missing now, you can use Carson Bench as a center field and say, all right, you're gonna have the job until you lose it in spring training. If you keep it in spring training, great, you're our center fielder. But if you get Bellinger and Bench doesn't work out, at least this year in spring training, and he doesn't look ready, you could throw Tyrone Taylor in center field, because you got Pete Alonso. Now you got Bellinger. You're hoping Brett Beatty or Francisco Alvarez step up in the power department and do what Brett Beatty did last year. Alvarez has a season that we all expect him to have. Now you're talking about a better lineup. But one of those guys is not doing anything. You can't and this is the problem. If they think Carson Bench is going to be the outfielder on opening day, let's say they believe that, then Pete Alonso isn't a necessity at this point. It has to be Bellinger. You need a backup plan in the outfield, because if you don't get Bellinger and you sign Pete Alonso and let Carson Bench be your center fielder, there's nobody playing left field. Who is it? Me and you? Another young kid? Like, this is the problem. This is why we talked about the Mets need 2 big bats and they needed 2 top starters, or at least, top 3. They needed ace and someone who's a number 3 at the worst. That we talked about. Like, nobody should be saying that they don't need those 2 things. Bringing back Pete Alonso isn't enough. Met fans won't see it that way, but they be bitching in May when the team's falling apart already.
I don't want to see any of this Jeff McNeil in left field. That's a disaster.
Jeff McNeil's getting traded, guys.
Yeah, get him off this
If
team.
Kodai Senga and Jeff McNeil is on this team, David Stearns needs his fucking head examined.
That's a problem. Yeah, that's a big problem.
You got a guy who quit on us in Kodai Senga when we needed pitching, and Jeff McNeil. Like, you really want Jeff McNeil on his team after another report about him and Lindor? You can't have that. And talk about,
you know what? Let alone that is that you started this offseason off with a bang and getting rid of Brandon Nimmo, right? That's the portion of how I respected David Stearns to start the offseason off, of giving us a whole new look Mets. Objectively, you get worse offensively given the numbers of those 2 guys. You get better defensively, but that makes your offense worse. I think we can all agree to that. And so if you're going to just do that and get rid of Brandon Nimmo, like, I'm expecting you to go full throttle, revamp this team. Senga's gone. McNeil's gone. Do whatever you have to do within this core to shake it up outside of Lindor, who's going to be contractually here just by default, right? And again, Lindor with the production, you're going to keep him all day long. It would be crazy to trot out a roster that has Jeff McNeil's and Kodai Senga's names in it, because now we're talking about a situation. If David Stearns doesn't want to spend like a madman for pitching and for offense, he's going to have to trade. I still like the name Stephen Kwan, man. We're talking about left field. I still like the name Stephen Kwan. I like Schwarber. I like Stephen Kwan. You give me those 2 guys and I can work with something, right? Like, I can work with that all day long. I think it's far-fetched, maybe. We don't know about the Guardians and what they're planning to do, but I know that Stephen Kwan's no power hitter, but he is a premier leadoff hitter and fits the mold of what, like you said, Luis Angel Acuna should be. That's what Stephen Kwan is. And he'd make this lineup better, especially kind of complementing and getting on base for Lindor, Soto, etc. So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because I think the Mets are going to have to make multiple trades. It's just like, are they going to find the right deals in order to do that? They started off nicely with the Brandon Nimmo deal, but it's. Go ahead. I'm just like thinking about this. I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, is Stearns really going to do this and pull this off or not?
So he doesn't want to trade assets for pitching. He doesn't want to trade assets for outfield help or any type of position player help. And can I say something really quick? I'll have MLB Network on mute again, so I won't break any news, I promise. But are we in a lockout? Is the CBA, are we in a lockout or strike? Because what the fuck is going on? There's nothing. Like, what are they getting? Free meals and hotel stays, and that's what they're having a good time in Florida right now. Like, what the hell? Like, yo, let's go get some deals done.
I know it's 7:00 on this Monday. I think we see something major go down tonight after we're off stream already.
Sleeping or at work.
Yeah.
Christ. Yeah. Like, you know what? Schwarber, go to Pittsburgh. Alonso, go to Boston. Diaz, go to who's looking to get him? The Dodgers. Go to the Dodgers. And you know what? Dylan Ross is our closer. Benj is our center fielder. Jet Williams, throw him in left field. Who cares? Vientos at first base. Tong, you might as well pitch him as our 3rd starter. And Brandon Sproat in a rotation with Nolan McLean and David Peterson and Clay Holmes. And go to war with that. Maybe we'll be okay. Because, like Met fans don't want to trade anybody. Met fans don't want to give long-term deals to anybody. And, Jonah Tong's going to be the next Jacob deGrom, even though he doesn't have the 2nd or 3rd pitch. I don't know what David Stearns wants. Some Met fans are delusional, thinking that Pete Alonso is the end-all be-all. Because this is what the Mets signed Pete Alonso. Nobody's going to care about bringing in anybody else offensively. You can book it. Everybody's will be crazy. Everybody will be way too emotional. Pete Alonso's coming back. They're not going to care that we have no left fielder, no center fielder, question mark at 3rd base. We don't know if Francisco Alvarez is any good. And everybody's going to be excited about Pete Alonso and his trajectory to 500 home runs because apparently that's what only anybody cares about. They don't care about winning until it's the season's over, and then they care about winning. They only care about the Pete Alonso home runs when the team was falling apart at the seams. Like I just don't understand it. Like we all know what we need. David Stearns knows what we need, but doesn't care because he's doing everything to not get better. In my opinion, like I just don't know what he's trying to do here.
Which I just saw this name in the chat. I have to scroll up for the comment, but that just kind of got me thinking, especially with the DH. I know we're not, we should talk about Schwarber at least before we, think about ending the stream, because I think the Schwarber thing, it's a lot of smoke, and I really want it to be true, but like there's just no way that the Mets, historically speaking, give up that kind of intel. And I'm just hearing too much Mets Schwarber for it to like have a good feeling, right, about this deal happening. But we're talking about the DH. What do you think about Eugenio Suarez, dude? I know he's old, but that's another thing that is gonna be like a low contract. You get the home run power, and that's it. Like, where do you think he goes?
I mean, it should be the Mets, right? Wouldn't that make sense? DH him. He's a good glove at third base, but you're probably not going to put him there because of Beatty. But I mean, he's a backup plan, right? He'll be a DH if Beatty fails. Put him at third base. I mean, how many? Close to 40 home runs last year, right?
49.
Holy shit! Yeah, hell yeah! I put him at third base, to be quite honest with you. I mean, he might only be a 1-year deal. I mean, I would even go crazy and give him a 2-year deal with an option. 1 year. It's 1-year deal, and the second year an option.
They're projecting him to be 2 years, $30 million.
Oh, that's a bargain.
That is a bargain. That's a nice
DH
deal.
or third base, doesn't matter. That's a smart deal.
I just because I know we talked about him a lot at the trade deadline, and the Yankees fans were talking about him too. He ended up going to Seattle. He didn't really have a good time in Seattle. I don't think in the second half, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he's been a consistent home run guy for the last couple of seasons, and I mean, I like him. I like what he brings. I think that there's one deal, like there's a lot of Mets fans are talking about just give us somebody in this lineup. If you're not going to trade for Luis Robert and the upside there at the power, go out there and get like a 1-year deal of like Adolis Garcia or something like that. But I'm looking at Eugenio Suarez. I know he's an infielder, can be a DH. If you strike out on Schwarber and you want a cheap deal to bring a competent bat in with power, and that also gives you flexibility to go ahead and re-sign Pete Alonso or do whatever you want on the free agent market for another bat, that's a good bargain bat that I would go out there and invest in 100%. For sure.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what that does. Like, if you're in on Schwarber, let's say they're serious about Schwarber. Schwarber's only a DH, right? Just probably Eugenio Suarez could be a third baseman, but let's say he's predominantly DH. If you're gonna be in on Schwarber seriously, you probably have to think about 4 years. I mean, what Suarez hit 7 home runs less than Schwarber, like. And you're getting 2 years less. Like, if you're going to be bargain basement dumping or spending, that's a good dumpster to dive in.
That's a Stearns move. Suarez is a Stearns signing.
Nobody could be mad at that.
Yeah.
Because then you could bring in either a Bellinger or Alonso and you replace that production power-wise. Now, it's only for 2 years, at least for Suarez, is always a risk because he's older. But, I mean, even if he takes a step back, and he hits 35 home runs. And let's say you bring back Alonso. Let's say that's 35, 40 home runs. Like, now you already replaced the production of Pete Alonso, Nimmo, home run wise at least, and probably RBI wise. You're not going to hit 40 home runs and have 60 RBIs. Like, that's a little crazy. Like, you're going to have at least 80 some plus RBIs. And you replace the power right there. And now you have a lineup where you can say, all right, we got every guy can hit over 30 home runs, which should be guaranteed with Lindor, Suarez. Suarez, Alonso, and Soto. That's 4 guys right there that's going to hit 30 home runs plus. And you hope Beatty and Alvarez can provide 20 home runs at least. And now you're talking about a better lineup. I would, that's a great name. I didn't even think of that name. But yes, I mean, that's kind of a backup plan to Schwarber. Because if you're that desperate for a DH to give 4 years, $100 million at least, 2 years, 30, I mean, that's a bargain. I would take that in a heartbeat for sure. 100%.
Imagine I would take Suarez too at this point if that's the route. And this is even a crazier thing to even bring up. It's no way this is going to happen that the Mets and Dodgers strike a deal. But imagine taking Teoscar Hernandez off their books.
I wanted him last year, man.
I know they're looking to trade him, but it's just not going to be to the Mets. I don't think they're going to find anybody. No one wants to help that organization because that would just give them more flexibility.
I mean, well, what are they looking for? Just to shed? No, because this is what happens. You trade for Teoscar Hernandez, they start Edwin Diaz tomorrow.
That's what I'm saying. They're trying to free up some space to get some
up the money for. You would have to take on the contract.
Yeah,
they probably would take a prospect and they would sign Edwin Diaz. They're probably looking to shed that payroll. I mean, you kind of losing out. I don't say you might be losing out on Diaz, but you probably will. But yeah, I take Teoscar Hernandez in a heartbeat. He can play left field, and he's pretty decent defender. Not great, but pretty decent. And now you only have to worry about center field. And, then you can kind of bring back Peter Alonso now. But, it goes back. What does Teoscar have? 3 years left on his deal? What was it, a 4-year deal he got?
I think he's got a club option attached, but he's got 2 more guaranteed years with the club option at the end, if I'm not mistaken. But it's for like $18 million, something also pretty like for what he provides offensively, 25 home run guy, 90 RBIs, kind of like what Aaron is saying here, kind of like Brandon Nimmo, kind of like that kind of like offensive production. I don't think he's a good defender, to be honest.
No, he's not terrible.
You could DH him too if you wanted to. You could DH him.
Yeah, but then we still have an outfield hole.
Yeah. But that's fine. But that's fine because then you have bench.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the reason why we're bringing this up is that if we want 2 impactful power bats in this lineup, there's going to have to be a short-term deal out there for somebody, unless it's a trade or a trade.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this thing, right? Let's say the Mets. Let's say Hernandez, Schwarber, and Suarez. Let's say the Mets get one of them somehow, some way, right? And that's probably your DH. You still got outfield holes. Like, would it make more sense to bring back Pete Alonso what is easier to fill? Good outfield help or first base?
First base.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once again, we're rolling back to Bellinger being the better option on this team. If you bring back, if you bring one of those DH guys.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Again, every one of those guys, well, besides Hernandez, let's say Hernandez is what, a 20 home run guy? Or you want to give him a little bit more credit, give him 25 home runs?
25. He did 20. Okay. He hit 25 last year.
Let's say Bellinger 25. Like nothing crazy. That's 50 home runs. That stretches out your lineup. You already now again, you have 25 home runs from Nimmo.
Oh, you're talking about Bellinger, not Teoscar. Oh, Bellinger. Okay, that's fine.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, let's say Teoscar is 25 and whoever you bring in as DH.
Got it.
Like that. Like I'm saying, like if you bring Bellinger, because Bellinger and Teoscar are Mendes, you can't bring both of them in. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does center field wise for Bellinger, but let's just say you bring Bellinger and you bring Suarez. Let's say Suarez takes a big step down. He has 30 home runs. And Bellinger hits 25. Right? That's 55 home runs right there. That is basically nearly the same production power-wise as the Alonso Nimmo production. Right?
Yeah, but my thing is that and you got to, if you're going to bring in Nimmo to that, you have to take into account Marcus Semien, who'll probably give you like 15 or something like that too. So
good point.
Yeah. So, but my thing is that if that's the case, then I can't see the Mets going external for a first baseman, which I take big issue with because I'm not relying on Ryan Clifford to be ready. And I'm not relying on Mark Vientos to make that switch because I think that would be a disaster. Mark Vientos, I don't trust him anywhere in the field, let alone first base, right? Third base was bad. First base, it's just like unproven, like how he's going to transition there full time. So I think that they have to go external. If Pete Alonso leaves, there's going to have to be an external candidate to backfill first base. And that's the only way that I'm going to be happy. That's really the only way. I'm not getting convinced and sold on Clifford or Vientos to start 2026. I'm
going to hear the name Okamoto.
Right. Me too.
Because I think Okamoto is down the list because you have a Bellinger option, you have an Alonso option, and internally you got a Vientos option. Like that's why Okamoto is like far on the list because there's so many options. Even though I don't think Vientos is an option, I think that's just Stearns just talking him up. But when you have Alonso and Bellinger still on the board, Okamoto is kind of third on that list. So that's why I don't think it's a conversation yet. I do think if Pete Alonso or Bellinger signs, you're going to start hearing more and more about Okamoto and you're talking about Pete Alonso right now on MLB Network. Report is Pete Alonso is a priority for the Mets. Mets GM David Stern says we'll be in touch. That's great. That's a great line. I'm sorry. That must get Mets fans excited. But it's so. I'm sorry. I'm not the biggest Pete Alonso fan, but you don't say that as a GM. We'll be in touch. Dude's in the same hotel.
Yeah, they're not gonna meet with him. Oh, I think he goes to the Red Sox, man. I mean, there's a certain level of, again, I'm not gonna. But the thing is, it's not just the Mets, right? David Stern set the precedent that last year he was not going to give in to a long-term deal for Pete Alonso, and it looks like he's not going to do it this year either. And the fact of the matter is that I can maybe see the Red Sox giving him an extra year of what the Mets won't, whether that's 4 or 5. It depends on what the Mets' best offer to Alonso is. But it's kind of crazy with what Pete Alonso, I think, Rob, like subjective thoughts aside, with what he's posted offensively in his career. I know he's a bad defender, right? The Pirates also offered Schwarber 4 years, $100 million. That's on the table. As bogus as that is, he's never taking that, right? Yeah. You're telling me that Alonso is not going to get 4 years, but Schwarber is? That thought process still doesn't make sense to me. I know Schwarber, and I know Pete Alonso doesn't play first base well, but at least he can play first base. He's an option defensively, where Schwarber is just a straight up bat, and that's it. So the fact that teams are reluctant, I don't know how this is, but like, I don't know how Pete Alonso got blackballed on the market, but that's what it feels like right now. And it's unfortunate for him.
We talked about this yesterday. There's got to be something that we don't know that around baseball everybody knows. Like I'm not saying it's good or I mean it's clearly a bad thing because it just doesn't make sense. Like Pete Alonso's not a bad player. Like as much as I don't think that it's the end all be all, the Mets have to bring him back. There's other ways to build a championship team. Pete Alonso's not the exception. Like there's something going on. Like I'm telling you right now, if Pete Alonso ends up going elsewhere, the same way we heard all the noise, all the clubhouse stuff with Nimmo about being a leader and all that stuff, all that shit's gonna come out with Pete Alonso. So do you want Pete Alonso to play or do you want the dirt if he goes somewhere else? Like there's something's coming out because there is no way. Like nobody's gonna talk bad on the Mets about Pete Alonso until he's officially gone. Like something. I mean, am I wrong? Like it can't just like there's too much production from Pete Alonso all these years for so many teams not to be in on him. Like there's more teams. Like the Yankees don't have a first baseman. The Red Sox is clearly in on him. We heard about Baltimore. We heard about the Reds. And it seems like those teams, I mean, I know that he's going to meet with the Orioles, but I don't take the Orioles seriously at all.
Like, I think they would go out there and splurge. I think that the Orioles are a team that's desperate to get a big contract on.
But like, how does Kyle Schwarber, who's a predominant DH, have more teams? The Pittsburgh Pirates are in on him. And Pete Alonso has what, 3 teams seriously in on him?
I think that him declining that original extension leaves a sour taste in what his expectations are around the league. Maybe I think that's the viable explanation. I mean, he declined 7 for 158. What was it? What year was that when he declined that? 2023?
I think so.
Coming off of a good 2022 campaign, right? In that season where the Mets got bounced in the wild card.
And so he's probably going to get the close to that with except the years, money wise. So basically, he 5 years, say like around 160 something. That's probably what he's going to get
for Pete Alonso.
Yeah. I mean, it's more money per year, but overall, the contract's total is the same. If he would have took that 7 years a couple of years ago,
I don't know if he's going to get 160, man. I don't know if he's going to get 160.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, do you really think around the league soured on him because he didn't take that deal when other players do the same thing and decline deals? Like, it's okay for Soto not to do it. It's okay for Aaron Judge not to do it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, they all declined offers from their organizations as well before they went to free agency. But Pete Alonso gets the hate. And again, I'm defending Pete Alonso here, guys. Listen up. You might not hear it again. Like I'm defending Pete Alonso here in that sense. Like that's a little crazy. I think it's something much worse.
Boris has to be taken into account that nobody likes Boris.
Sure, but that doesn't stop Dylan Cease to get $200 million.
No, I agree. I mean, I agree.
But that's what I'm saying though. Like I'm telling you right now, it's got to be something that is in-house that is known around the league because it doesn't make any other sense production-wise.
I mean, I won't go as far to speculate that. I don't know. Could it be a possibility? Sure. I mean, Sal Licata teased that, and he ended up backtracking after reporters came to the defense of Pete Alonso. Like, you never know. I mean, the Mets have their own clubhouse issues apparently, so like whatever. But regardless, I think that Pete Alonso, if I had to give him a fair estimation for a deal, given what he's produced and what the lack of interest from other teams, probably like 5 for 125, right? 25 mil a year, maybe bump it up to 130 if if that's going to make all the difference in the world. And that's it. It really depends on what Kyle Schwarber gets. Pete Alonso should be praying that Kyle Schwarber maximizes that contract, right? Because there's no chance in the world that you're telling me that Kyle Schwarber should get paid more than Pete Alonso this free agency.
Well,
there's no way.
What do they see in Schwarber more offensively? The walks, the average? Like I don't.
Well, the home runs. I mean, Pete Alonso's not really hitting 50 plus, right? I mean, he's hitting 38, 40, but.
Yeah, but again, Pete Alonso, he actually plays a position that should give the little value, you know? That's
sure.
Why, but that's why none of it makes sense.
Like, no, it doesn't make sense. This is an anomaly that I can't figure out. Really.
That is why, I understand the Mets and David Stearns not wanting to go 5 years on Pete Alonso, but they're willing to give 4 for Schwarber. If the reports are correct, like they're not being in the Schwarber conversation and thinking you're going to get a 2-year deal with him. Like, I mean, unless Stearns is that stupid. Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, if, we talk about desperate teams, the Blue Jays were desperate for Cease. The Red Sox seemed desperate for Pete Alonso. Like, I just don't know. I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. Like, if there was a big market for Pete Alonso, I can see. I'm saying the Mets have no chance, but the Mets have a chance because the market sucks for Pete Alonso. Like, it does seem like Schwarber has to sign first before Pete Alonso does, and obviously whoever loses out on Schwarber is going to be a little bit more desperate, including the Mets, in re-signing Pete Alonso. That's
yeah. Not to shift the conversation, but I was just listening in on what Martino was saying at the winter meetings too, and he was saying that the Yankees, from the Yankees' perspective, because they got their own issues with the ownership and the whole payroll decrease, et cetera, which is a real problem for them, that they're not going to go above and beyond to retain Cody Bellinger. They want him back, but if the market gets up there in price for the competition, like 6-7 years, that they're not getting into any bidding wars. So
the Mets and Yankees need to be they should be embarrassed.
Yeah, I think so.
Both teams. Yep. Holy shit. Like, come on, guys. Like, and then you come on here and say you want to win. That is bullshit. Like, I'm sorry. Look, the Yankees, I hope they never win 80 games again. Like, but I mean, come on, guys. Like, both New York teams looking for deals here, when they should be spending and being aggressive and being, be a little bit of a risk taker, because you rather take, again, this is the risk reward thing I just don't understand. Like, they rather take risk on lower end deals on worse players than risk on longer deals that are probably going to work out better than those short-term deals for worse players. I just don't understand it. Like, my God, again, I think the Yankees have thrown more money at proven talent over the years over the Mets. So, I mean, that is the reason why they're consistently in the playoffs and win 90 games. And most of the time they're in the playoffs and the Mets are not. But that's a joke, man. And Cashman sounded the same. Like, I heard him yesterday. I was like, that's Brian Cashman? Like, they basically put his tail between his legs. Like, Hal is basically, chopped his nuts off because Cashman is not that type of way. Cashman will get who he wants to get, but he doesn't have the financial money because Hal's not giving it to him. So he's kind of screwed too. And the same thing with the Mets. Like, there's no constraints, but Stearns acts like he's in Milwaukee. Like, oh man, I tell you, this is this can be a complete disaster for both New York teams. And I mean, in a situation, and I think we talked about this early on in the offseason, if maybe the end of the season. This is the year to take control of the NL East. The Braves aren't as good. The Phillies could be losing multiple big guys in their lineup. And who knows about Zach Wheeler in their rotation? And they only got basically Sanchez at this point with who knows with Zach Wheeler coming back. They might lose Suarez. Who knows if they're gonna bring in any more pitching? Like, this is the year to take control of the NL East. The Nationals look like they're trading Gore, possibly, or even their shortstop, I forgot his name, or they were just talking about it earlier today. Abrams, like the Marlins are the Marlins. Like, this is the opportunity to be better and take control over a vulnerable Philadelphia team, a Braves team that I don't know what they're trying to do. Now, that if they're healthy, they can be a good offensive team, but their pitching is very much a question mark. Like, this is the year to take control of the NL East. This is the time to do it. This is the time to get extremely better so the NL East can be somewhat of a cakewalk. And now you're making it a competition. You're supposed to be trying to fight off the Dodgers, fight off the best teams in the NL. And all you're trying to do is making it harder to win the NL East by doing half-ass work. Like, this is the best time to get better. When the Phillies could be down, where the Braves are kind of questionable. And we know about the Nationals and the Marlins. Like, I don't know, Chris, but I must be crazy, but doesn't that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I think the Phillies are in for a rude awakening, but they're like the Eagles of the NFL. They'll somehow recuperate, and find a way to put out a respective roster. So I wouldn't discount the Phillies. Yeah, the Braves are also in a unique situation as well. Wouldn't put it past them to also do the same thing, although they're coming off of a dreadful season. So it is there for the taking, though. I mean, really, you are correct. I will not push back on what you said because it is there for the taking. I wouldn't discount the Marlins either, though. I would not discount the Marlins because I think that they also are working with a lot of constraints, just given who they have been.
It depends on
correct.
Right. If they trade one or two of them.
But there's no reason at this point, given the outlook of the NL East, that the Mets, theoretically, with Steve Cohen, who's spending on a casino, right, should not be going all out in terms of financial flexibility. And he is. I'm sure Steve Cohen is is willing to do it. It's really that he has David Stearns. This is his ship. This is his ship that's sailing.
And this is why I wanted a GM in here. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of David Stearns. I talked about when we saw, he was the best available, I guess. And we know Steve Cohen was after him for years. But this is why you need a guy like, Preller from San Diego or Dave Dombrowski, guys that are not afraid to spend that big money. You know what I'm saying?
But you could also argue that Preller has, what has he done for them?
I agree. But you think Padre fans or Philly fans were complaining when they were bringing in those guys, those top talents, spending money and trading their prospects for better proven talent? Nobody was complaining when they made those moves. Obviously, they didn't win World Series. I mean, the Phillies got to a World Series and stuff like that. But overall, nobody was mad at the time when those moves were made. Signing those big-time free agents, making those big trades during the trade deadline or the offseason. Getting Juan Soto, getting Zach Wheeler, getting this guy, getting Real Muto, bringing in Schwarber. You know what I'm saying? Like Castellanos. They were never afraid to do those moves. I don't see Stearns doing that with the money he has. That's the problem. There's never that risk where it's I don't think Schwarber's a risk. I don't even think Peter Alonso's a risk. But there's a pretty good chance both of them are not going to be one of them are not even going to be a New York Met. Same thing goes for the starting pitching. Same thing goes for Bellinger, or same thing goes for, You can't bring in Luis Robert in here and then sign Okamoto and tell me, oh, this team's great. Like, that's a dangerous game to play. Like, oof, man, I tell you.
Yeah, I don't. But to be fair to David Stearns, we haven't seen how this offseason has played out, and he's basically been the most aggressive GM there is in terms of trades and the signing of Devin Williams. Like, what other team has done more than the
Agree.
Mets so far?
Agree. I mean, the Red Sox have done pretty good.
Well, I guess you're right. But, like, yeah, the Mets and the Red Sox, really, I mean,
Sure.
on the other hand, he is being aggressive. We still don't know what the overall plan is. That's why we're kind of worried, but he is being aggressive.
But both moves, the Devin Williams and the Nimmo trade, both of those can't be graded until what they do after that. Because you can't sign Devin Williams and then you lose out on Suarez, you lose out on Diaz, and say Devin Williams is your closer, and then the same thing goes for, trading Brandon Nimmo, and you don't bring a proven talent or proven bat in the outfield and tell me that these are good moves, because then they're not. Like, that's what we talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Devin Williams trade I'm signing is smart, but it's not a good signing if you don't bring in Suarez or Diaz. Like,
Yeah.
it could be okay, but it's a huge hole, huge risk. Same thing goes for, trading Brandon Nimmo. That trade's not going to be graded until what you do post the Nimmo trade lineup wise. Like, that's the problem. Like, it's aggressive, and I'm not against them, but you can't bring in half-assed people in here and tell me those trades and those signings are good if it doesn't bring in something else that makes more sense.
Just judging off the roster outside of a couple of pieces like Lindor and Soto, right? I mean, you have to give Soto that contract. You just do. I mean, that's once in a lifetime type of opportunity. Lindor is an inherited contract, right? For from the previous regime. It really seems like with what the pieces are right now on the team currently and what they're going after on this market, with the young guys coming up and the controllability that they have, it seems like the New York Mets are just setting up for trying to make as good of a push as possible for 3 to 4 years in that window, and then being tied to basically nothing after those years to reset, which is not what the Padres did. They are hurting now because of it. I'm not saying it's the right move because there's a certain level of patience that it takes to have that I can't see the long game, the end game with that, but that's just what I'm not saying it's the right move, like I said, but it just feels that's the way that Stearns is building this roster up, unfortunately. Because that won't win you a championship or the Dodgers, I don't think. So
no, but it also puts you in a situation where 2026 is not going to be, you need a lot of things to go right, and you need a lot of young kids to perform what everybody expects, and that is a dangerous game to play. You can't have an older Lindor. Let's say you do bring back Peter Alonso. You got guys over 30 years old. You have Juan Soto here. Like, you're wasting the prime years. Like, if those young kids don't work out, we're talking about next offseason with a CBA problem and possible lockout, where Mets now have to spend more money to bring in better talent. That's
if they can with the whole,
correct.
maybe.
But lies another problem.
Right.
Like, spend the money now while you can, because what happens if the CBA and somehow, some way, there is a cap?
That'd be crazy.
Now,
Yeah.
you got a cheap GM that now you can't spend money, and now that money, let's say, it's prorated, because you can't say, oh, get rid of the salary because there's a cap now. When it's prorated, it is what it is. You can't increase it. You can only do what you can within that whatever amount of money you can spend. Like, it's a dangerous game to play. Like, you either better be right on the young guys, or you better change your philosophy when it comes to what you got to do with the pitcher and the lineup.
And that timeline is why I'm like not head over heels about Brett Beatty anyways, because he's not this like 22-year-old prospect that's like, he's like 25 going on 26. You have a guy like Reimer, and AJ Ewing coming up as well that fit the mold of being that reset option should there be a reset for the New York Mets a couple years down the road, which is also why I don't think they're going after Framber Valdez, because they don't want that money on the books for 5 or 6 years. And that's why they prefer a guy like Michael King. Whether we agree with it or not, it just seems like that is the pattern. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what Emmy's saying here too. Just to put into perspective, we talked about it. I'll circle back on it. Like, David Stearns set the precedent of this Pete Alonso market.
He did.
Pete Alonso is now pulling a Framber Valdez and showing up to these meetings, trying to build his own market and trying to make himself a little bit more marketable. That's crazy to me.
That's a good point with Framber Valdez. What if the 5-6 year deal is an anomaly for Framber Valdez? And the reason why he's going to the hotel to meet with teams is to try to get that 5th or 6th year that nobody seems to want to give him. 4 years for Framber Valdez seems like a damn bargain, and it's a good deal, and that's why maybe the Mets are in on him for whatever, that could be a reason why they're in on him, because maybe nobody wants to give him a 5 or 6 year deal. That's why Valdez is going to the hotel. Same reason why Pete Alonso is going to a hotel to try to find 5 or 6 years, because I don't think anybody's giving it to him either.
Well, it could be the case, which is why the Mets were linked to the Valdez in the first place. David Stearns, will give him the deal. I'm sure there's a deal out there on the table. Like I said, it's not been reported. This is pure speculation. I'm sure the Mets have a deal out there for Framber Valdez worth 3 years.
I think it's 4.
Maybe.
Because I mean, there was no right away when the offseason started, Framber Valdez was linked to the Mets like that, and we laughed. We were like, are you kidding me? There's no way. They're over 30 years old. But I think a 4-year deal, you get him out of here at the age of 36. It's like, oh, okay, that's I'm not gonna say. I mean, you could say it's a bargain. I mean, that's pretty damn good. But I think that's why he's been linked. They've been linked to him the whole time. Maybe he's trying to milk a 5th year out of another team, and maybe he can't, and maybe he goes to the next best thing, a 4-year deal. I'm not saying the Mets the only one that has a 4-year deal, but right away he slots in as an ace.
Yeah, that's exactly the point of what I was trying to get across too, is maybe I didn't do it in the most efficient way when we were talking about Framber, is that we don't even know if he's going to be in line for that. All I'm just saying is that if he does have an offer, will get an offer for that type of length, I just don't expect the Mets to be players for him. But there's a reason why he went to the GM meetings as it was, right? You don't do that as a player typically unless you want to sign early on into the winter meetings or even before that, or you're really trying to market yourself and find the best fit and convince a team that you deserve a long-term contract where maybe the market isn't setting itself up for you to get that long-term contract. So it's pretty curious. And I'm just curious about how big of spoilers the Orioles are going to play here for, Valdez and for Pete Alonso, because they've also been linked to these two guys.
Yeah, let's see if they're serious, because the Orioles can put a stick in a lot of plans for the Red Sox and the Mets. So, because they're kind of after the same guys for the most part at the top of the market. What do you think? Prediction time? You think prediction time for tonight?
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
David Stearns is going to bed at 7:45. So no moves tonight. He might sign Frankie Montas's brother, Reggie, to a 1-year deal because he likes that. I predict this. I think the Mets are going to make a move tonight. I don't think it's going to be pretty big. I don't think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be somewhere in that middle lukewarm range. I'm going to go with. Well, you might think it's not lukewarm. I think it's going to be Michael King.
Okay. I like that, and I'll take it all day long. I've already made my opinion known about that.
I'll go and just be like, all right, whatever. Do something else, and then we have a conversation that I'll be excited about. Again,
I think
the writer's not bad, but
you know what? If I'm making a bold prediction out of left field, I think Kyle Schwarber signs tonight with his hometown Cincinnati Reds. I think that they'll come out of nowhere and give him the deal that he wants.
That would be so annoying. Oh,
yeah.
He would hit like 70 home runs in that ballpark. Seriously.
For sure. Which is why it would be a great investment for them to do that, let alone the story of selling tickets, right? So
and hey, right now they're better than the Mets.
Yeah. They held the tiebreaker. They went on and they made the playoffs. They got bounced pretty quickly, like the Mets would have, but they made it nonetheless. So, yeah, I mean, listen, man, like,
Well, the Reds are contending. I mean, I mean, the Brewers are what they are. They find a way to make. But I mean, the Central's up for grabs. Like, if the Reds get Schwarber, they got decent pitching. Like, they can fight for that. They can fight for a playoff spot. I mean, they did this year with nobody. So having that with Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green topping that rotation. Like, I mean, they're not bad. I mean, they can win the Central or at least be a playoff team. Like, they could
yeah,
definitely be a playoff team.
I don't think that there's any problem. I don't think I think Kyle Schwarber would entertain going back there. It's just about if the Reds are going to meet the asking price, and that's the same thing for every team, right? And maybe this is all to drive up the Phillies' price, anyways. But that is what it is. That's my bold prediction.
Do you think it's odd though that Pittsburgh offered reportedly a 4-year, 100+ million, and
It's not odd. It's just for
it's in the
show,
same
dude.
state with Philly? Like, that's just like so odd. Like, is that a way to just be like, all right, we're not taking your deal, but hey, can you just throw it out there so the Phillies can give me money? Like, I know that's kind of
No, I think it's more so the Pirates trying to play themselves up as like willing to spend this big money before these, CBA stuff kicks in so that they have hard evidence that they're like, oh, we offered this guy 100 million. We didn't get him, but we offered the contract. Like, Schwarber's not taking 100 million. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to get probably a little bit more than that, I would say. And he's definitely not going to Pittsburgh of all places, right? Same thing with the Pete Alonso rumor. The Pirates are hanging around in the Pete Alonso sweepstakes. Like, come on, dude. Like, get serious. Anyways, shout out to my guy Zach in the chat here. I haven't seen Zach in a while. We should get him up here if he's willing. We haven't talked to him in a while. He says, I think the goal is to sign someone like King, who is someone who can fill a top 3 spot in the rotation with some upside on a shorter deal, and then trade for the true ace. Agree. That's what, and I would be fine with that. If that's the route I can see, that's what I was saying earlier. That's what I also see. That's a good comment.
Yeah, we definitely got to get Zach on. I mean, we got together in Pittsburgh, and then it was like, oh no, Mets suck, and then.
Yeah. Oh, okay. He got his X. He just got his X
you.
account back. Okay, I see. That makes more sense. I thought you went cold turkey on the Mets with the way that things ended last season, which I wouldn't blame you, my guy.
Account.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. I was like, yeah, because he felt like he fell off the face of the map, man. I was like, I know the Mets suck, but come on, man. I know you're a fan. We had to watch that shit in Pittsburgh,
Oof, that was brutal. Yeah, that was awful. So we will see. Man, I know we talked about it last time, but we got to get up there to or down there to spring training, man. I've never been.
I'm booked. I'm ready. So I'm going from because the first game is on the 21st, on Saturday. I'm going down either Thursday or Friday, the day or two before that, and I'm staying for like the weekend. So I'm going down there, and I'm also going to open the day at Citi Field against the Pirates.
Oh, I should probably think about opening day too.
Yeah, because Paul Skeens against David Peterson,
Nolan McLean. Yeah, so we'll see. But that's really all I got. We'll see. If there's anything that comes of tonight that's major that involves the Mets, I might toss up a live stream if I have the time to do so. So keep an eye out on that. Again, hit the notifications buttons. I know that, Rob, you're going to be at work and stuff like that. So hopefully you don't miss anything too crazy. But yeah, just check out all the previous content. A lot of what ifs, a lot of reports. But at this point, I think the objective statement is, with how the first couple of months of this offseason have gone so far, is that it's a wait and see game with the Mets to assess what's going to happen with this plan. David Stearns has been aggressive, but there are 2 moves that make you wonder what are the corresponding moves going to be, and that nobody has the answer to. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yep. So we'll see how it goes. Again, they're talking about Peter Alonso once again with John Heyman on MLB Network. It's almost 8:00, and really nothing has gone on the first 2 days so far. Again, I think it's going to start picking up later tonight. Again, I'll be dreaming about not going to work, but still going to work. Listen, guys, check out any breaking news. I know Chris will be on it for sure. Whatever. I'm going to be at work, so there's almost no way I can break news unless I'm on the forklift, kind of, breaking news with my phone, which would be a little dangerous, but that's okay. With that said, guys, again, day 2 of the winter meetings has gone nowhere so far. Everybody thought it was going to be a sizzling hot winter meetings. It's been ice cold so far, at least with the Mets. We know Peter Alonso's meeting with teams at the hotel. Framber Valdez, two guys that are linked to the New York Mets. They're both meeting with Orioles, Red Sox, who God knows who else. So we'll see where that takes any of us, especially with the New York Mets. Chris, got anything else before we head out?
No, like I said, if anything does, I think it might be a little bit unlikely, but if anything does break tonight, maybe expect a live stream. Most likely, maybe I'll have Zach on if he's awake by that time too, if he's free. But we'll see what we can do. But that's really it. I mean, just stay tuned. I think we won't really start getting our answers until maybe tomorrow night, when things start to materialize. But it's been a pretty dreadful and boring winter meeting so far. So hopefully we got something more better lined up for you all tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be live tomorrow at some point too to break things down. So we'll see you then.
There you go, guys. So thank you for tuning in to Mets Hot Stove, day 2 of the winter meetings. We'll see you tomorrow, or if any breaking news happens, guys. Have a great night. Let's go, Mets.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the